Shannon Paul. Comedy has always had the ability to shine a light on things that are hard to talk about. In fact, the word comedy has been around a really long time. It harkens back to the Greeks, whose comedic poets used it to sway public opinion. And many of us, especially comedians, have become pretty proficient at using comedy to help process the hard times we go through in life. So, welcome to Comedy Through the Chaos, a series where stand-up and storytelling meet real life, and hopefully will help all of you process some of your hard times through humor. Up first, you can't live with them, you can't live without them. Family. So we started with a little show on Mother's Day. Here we go. Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos is brought to you by the Minnesota State Arts Board and My Talk 1071.
Hello, and welcome to Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos, live from the New Hope Cinema Grill. I'm Roxanne Battle, your virtual host for this virtual Laugh Fest, and happy Mother's Day. In the middle of a pandemic, I know. I mean, look at this theater. There's nobody here. I mean, it may sound a little irreverent. We're all going through hard times right now, and I know that, but couldn't we all use a good laugh? That's why Miss Shannon has invited some of her very funny friends to tell jokes. And earlier in the week, we actually went out and shot some conversations with those performers so you could get to know them a little better and see that they're dealing with some of the exact same things you are. Yeah, there's a pandemic going on, and it's hard. But the truth of the matter is, long before the pandemic, and during, and we will get through this, and after, we had and still have stuff we got to deal with. Friends, family, relationships, stuff like dementia, stuff like identity, stuff like being a mom and trying to balance it all and stay sane with the kids. Where's the comedy in all that chaos? Well, grab your favorite something to drink and sit back and be prepared to laugh. Up first, it is the one and the only Tiffany Norton, winner of Best Local Comedian from City Pages magazine and creator of the Bitter Baker web series.
Welcome to Solitaire, y'all. Thank you for joining me again for The Bitter Baker. Today I'm pleased to present my new recipe. COVID was the case that they gave me. Prison bars. I think most people have wondered at some point whether they would be good in jail, whether they would survive in jail, and I think the last few weeks has proven to most of us, including myself, we suck at it. We have Netflix, you can go outside, you can drive a car, you can do a lot of things. The liquor stores have been deemed essential. Still can't cope. I think like a lot of people, I've been spending even more time than normal in the kitchen baking. I'm trying to cope with the fact that I don't have a dating life anymore. I'm living vicariously through my other friends. My friend Judy, I had a guy break it off with her because he got upset because she wanted to actually quarantine. So his suggestion was that they could meet up in the woods. I think since roughly 1980, a little guy named Jason Voorhees has taught all women, you don't go on a date in the woods. Yeah, if Corona doesn't kill you, he will. So this quarantine recipe is one I actually took from people that are incarcerated, and you only need ingredients that you can find in your average vending machine or prison commissary. So it's really easy to begin this recipe. All we're gonna start doing is taking our Oreo cookies, separating them, and scraping out the cream filling and putting it in a separate bowl. We're gonna reserve that, we're gonna use that later. We will next crush all the wafers into a fine powder using a glass or a jar. I'm gonna use my food processor because in my mind, I'm in one of those fancy mobster jails. We're going to add the following: a tablespoon of mayonnaise, a tablespoon of peanut butter, a quarter cup of sugar, and a little bit of water. We're gonna mix this until it basically has the consistency of a brownie mix. I am disappointed though. I was having a really good COVID crush relationship going with this one guy I was chatting with online. I suggested a video call and he said he was too busy because he's a doctor. God, they're egotistical. It's all about them. And because waste not, want not in jail, we're going to use the original packaging from the Oreo cookies and we're going to bake it in the microwave for 5 minutes. Then we're going to prepare our cream frosting. We're going to use the Oreo cream or whatever cream you have left over. Wow, that sounded weird. Next, we're going to add a tablespoon of peanut butter to our reserved cream that we had from the inside of our chocolate wafers. If you're having a hard time finding an opener in an online dating situation, there are some appropriate socially distancing pickup lines you can use. I found this on the internet. Hey babe, can I ship you a drink? I saw you from across the bar. Stay there! Next, we want to prepare our toppings. I have a Hershey's chocolate bar that I'm going to melt. I can only use my microwave, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up this glass of water for about 2 minutes, and then I'm going to put the whole candy bar, wrapper and all, inside the warm glass of water, and it'll melt right inside the wrapper. So cool. Once your cake is cooled down, you can begin frosting it with our peanut butter and cream mixture. Then start decorating. Add your favorite toppings. I'm using M&Ms. You could use peanut M&Ms, really any kind of candy that you have available or on hand. And our last step, we'll cut the corner of the melted Hershey bar off, and we're going to drizzle that across our cake. And we're done. And tune in next time when we make toilet paper cakes, and then we use them.
Everybody, please welcome Tiffany Norton. Woo!
All right. Oh, we gotta have it nice and clean. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Woo! Get the cord. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here in lockdown with us. Much appreciated. I love doing stand-up comedy. I'm glad we're going to have the opportunity to do it again in this format. I started doing stand-up comedy later in life. I was 35 years old when I began. And, you know, it's interesting because I end up spending a lot of time with younger comedians in my career. I had a young man come up to me after a show recently and said something that I think he meant as a compliment. He said, "You know what? You were actually funny." Yeah, I know. And then he could see, obviously, he had misstepped from my face and my reaction, and so he tried to cover it up, as we all do, and he pivoted and said, "Oh, no, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant, like, you know, you're really sweet. You remind me of my mom." Yeah. And then he knew for sure, and he ghosted and just ran away. So now I was left to unpack that information alone by myself later that night with a box of Chardonnay. Why do I remind this kid of his mom? Came up with a couple of ideas. Maybe it's because I drink too much. Maybe because I swear too much. Or maybe it's because I don't love him. Thank you. First joke. I love it. I love it. I was raised in a strict Irish Catholic family. And my dad is an attorney, my mom is an educator, and I'm not sure where along the lines they got the idea, but I know my mom had seen some article that if you can create enough sibling rivalry between your children, ultimately you will produce 2 overachievers. Well, mission accomplished, Mom and Dad, because my brother is paranoid schizophrenic, and I'm performing in front of 3 people, so... And the World Wide Web. Do we even say that anymore? I don't even know if that's a thing. Hello, world. How you doing? Let's see. Yeah, it was interesting. My brother is paranoid schizophrenic. We didn't know that for quite a while. We're children of the 80s. You know, when my brother used to spend hours just hitting his head against the wall, we just thought he really liked Quiet Riot. He was just super into heavy metal. He was just super hardcore, you know. But I think having a mentally ill brother actually makes me a better friend. I have become, over the years, a professional rationalizer. Any of my girlfriends know this. If you've done something that's maybe a little jankety, call me. I will help you rationalize that shit. Here's an example. Had a girlfriend confess to me that she'd gotten depressed. She's been homeschooling this whole time, and she had started smoking the marijuana. And I was like, again, don't worry about it, sweetheart. You homeschool. It's fine. You're not driving the car. You're teaching them about horticulture, measurement. This is a science experiment. Come on. A friend of mine confessed to me that she was sleeping with her boss. I don't know, I was like, well, no big deal. You got the raise, right? And she's hot, I would, okay. This was one that was really hard though. A gal I know, not well, but I knew her. She had confessed to me that she had actually been stealing from her church. And I was like, ugh, I can't help you with that. And then I remembered, oh, wait, she's a Scientologist, so that's not, is that a real thing? Okay. My parents are divorced. And you know, it was interesting though, not many people get to actually see their marriage or their parents' marriage end. I got to see it in real time at Disney World. Yeah, my parents actually started fighting on our family trip to Disney World, and they broke up on the bridge to Tomorrowland. That is hard to write. And I don't really remember how the argument started. I definitely remember how the argument ended, because they were bickering back and forth about what they should do next. And my dad just got all mad and red and sweaty in the face, and he just wants to scream at my mom, but you can't, because it's Disney World. So he's just, with all the rage, just looks at her and says, well, fine, Kathy. What ride do you want to go on? And she said, very calmly, well, anything but It's a Small World. I've been on that ride for the last 17 years. I think I have a pretty good sense of why my parents' marriage ended too. One of the things is my dad, even though he was an attorney, he was very cheap. Very cheap. I've actually seen this man return a greeting card. And when the clerk asked why, his response was, I don't feel that way anymore. It was a get well card for my mother. For a fun treat for his birthday a couple years ago, I bought him a GPS when that was kind of a thing, you know, you didn't have it on the phone yet, you bought the GPS. But what I did was I opened up the package early and I programmed it to only speak in a woman's voice. So now when I ride with my father in the car, I can hear him yell at her and it's like my parents are still back together. So I've been in therapy on and off since I was 12 years old. Yeah. A lot of support for that. Okay, thank you. It's cool. Everybody's like, nope, that sounds right. No one reacted. That sounds fair. Sounds like a thing. I have what is called anxiety affective disorder, and I'm supposed to take pills to help with this condition, but I hate the way they make me feel, you know? Optimistic. Ugh. That's not fun for anyone. I've been thinking about actually going back to therapy. I recently went through a divorce last year. But what I did, instead of going to a therapist, I consulted another expert. I decided I should get my girlfriends together. We should have a couple cocktails. And we went to the Renaissance Festival, and I gave $50 to a witch to read my palms and tell me my future. Because that's what you do, right? That makes sense. And it was a fascinating reading because she told me in a past life that I was actually a pilgrim, which makes sense because I settle. I should have probably seen, though, that it might not have worked out. There was some tension right away with me and my future mother-in-law. The very first time my mother-in-law and I met, she honked me. Yeah. Tune in Tokyo. Yep. Hi, how are you? Look at you. Kind of a thing. Yeah, I didn't really know how to respond to that. And so we get inside. He takes me aside and explains. He's like, I'm sorry, that was really awkward. He's like, my mom is a recent breast cancer survivor. And so ever since her mastectomy, she's been very focused on that area. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that makes so much more sense than what I was thinking. And so much more. But he couldn't get over it, and he was so upset about it, even a couple hours later, and he was just so anxious. And I just had to put his mind at ease, and he's like, no, you can't. He's like, it just could not have gone any worse. It could not have gone any worse. And I said, oh my God, honey, absolutely, it could have gone worse. I mean, she could have been a cervical cancer survivor. That's harder to brush off. When I told her I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, we were married, and she's like, well, I could see that, kind of, for you, you know? Because you do remind me of a star. Amy Winehouse was the example she chose. And I'm like, you realize she's dead? And she said, yep. See, and I don't know if you've got any gamblers in the room, but that's why in blackjack they call 17 the mother-in-law hand, because you want to hit it, but you don't dare. I am a mom. I have one child. One labor experience was enough for me. I was in labor with my daughter for over 30 hours. Yeah, 30 hours. There was one good thing to come out of that experience, and the knowledge, that's the knowledge that my tight. Took a minute. I think that's the medical term. All right, it was. Fine, it was. I know, but I didn't have any trouble conceiving, and and it was weird because I have some very dear friends of mine, and they have children now, and everything is fine. But at the time, they were going through a really hard experience because they were doing in vitro fertilization, and they were sharing with me how traumatic and expensive that process was. And they also confided in me that their in vitro and their first daughter cost over $30,000, and I was like, $30,000? Holy crap! That's an expensive baby. Don't drop it. I always wondered why a couple years ago, all of a sudden these kids are riding around on bikes wearing helmets. Those are the expensive ones. That's $30K. I know. I didn't have the guts to tell them my fertilization experience because my baby cost $1,650 with tip. It was a really good Miller Lite special, and the rest is history. She's grown now. She's 21 now. We got through the teenage years, thank God. It was tough, though. When she entered junior high, we had to switch schools, and there was a lot of transition for her. And I remember her being really upset one day after school, just came home and just in tears. And she's like, Mom, I don't have any friends. You're my best friend. And I was like, oh my God. She is just like me. She has terrible taste in friends. That is not okay. Shoot higher. I know. Well, because see, here's the thing. Would a best friend do this? I don't know if a best friend would do this. I was involved with a. Are you guys familiar with the term bar crawl? Anybody here familiar? Yeah. Been on a bar crawl before? Yeah. Well, it was a charity bar crawl, and I'm a very generous person. And I was giving to charity on this bar crawl for a good 8-9 hours, really trying to help the community. And but you got to party safe. And so at the end of our debauchery, I had my husband come and pick me up because I didn't want to drink and drive. And we were driving home, and we're coming down the freeway, and all of a sudden, it's going to happen. Oh God, whoop, whoop. And there's nothing you can do. There's no exit ramp. There's nothing. So I did the one thing that all stupid drunk people do. They forget how gravity works or aerodynamics. And I rolled down the window and tried to puke around the window, like out the car. Didn't work. So the next morning, I was greeted by my ex-husband throwing my car keys at my chest, saying, "You're taking the car to get detailed." Fair enough. That is on me. You got me, right? So I go to the car wash place, and I explained to the man, because he asked, what do you want done today? And I explained to the man, I said, someone threw up in my car. And he immediately slaps a biohazard sticker on the window of my car. And I panicked, and I freaked out, and I immediately started lying. Immediately. I'm like, it wasn't me. I didn't throw up. It wasn't me. I didn't throw up in the car. It was my baby. My baby threw up in the car. And he said, oh, that's fascinating. Really? So you let your baby sit in the front seat and eat olives. Thanks. It's close enough. I'm going to get you an applause break. Hey. Hey, everybody. Thank you. Happy Mother's Day. Back to you, Roxanne.
Thank you, Tiffany. Happy Mother's Day. I would not want to be in the room when she had that conversation with her daughter. Thank you, Tiffany Norton. Again, for more Bitter Baker videos, you can like and subscribe to Tiffany's YouTube channel. Just search for Bitter Baker, and you can also look for her Facebook page. Well, food is something we all have in common, that's for sure. And when I met our next performer, I quickly learned, outside of the fact that he's a super nice guy and super funny, I quickly learned that we had something in common, the two of us. Our dads. Both of our dads have dementia. Here's my conversation with John DeBoer. Hey, how you doing?
Hanging in there. How you doing?
Yeah, how's your dad?
He's all right. I miss him, but we can FaceTime.
Yeah, me too. My mom and dad aren't video savvy, you know, so I just drop off groceries on the doorstep and kind of like Robin Hood, right?
Right.
You know, they want strawberries and blackstrap molasses and cookies and collard greens. So, so I make a daily, bi-weekly produce run. And, yeah, I miss them. You know, and it's hard too because, you know, our dads kind of share something.
Yep.
You know, my dad is kind of on the descending end of Lewy bodies dementia. He's got Alzheimer's, you know, dementia. So it wouldn't be Alzheimer's, it would be Lewy bodies, which is a form of dementia.
Right.
And, you know, you miss them in two ways. When you don't see them, and when you do see them, and they're not there.
That's right. That's one of the hardest parts is watching the memories disappear, but yet the soul is still there. Mm-hmm. Like with my dad, he's still got the sense of humor, and that's never going away. All his memories could be gone, and he's still going to have a sense of humor with the information that he has in his head. And that's the heartening part of it.
Right.
It's just like, well, it wasn't what he knew. It's how
personality.
That's right.
You know, it's like my dad is 6'4", still got a head of gray, white, silver white hair. He's a handsome guy, you know, but he's frail, you know, and someone once told me, you know, the heart remembers love even if the mind forgets. And one day I went over there to see him. And he looked at me, and I tried to hold his hand. This was before we couldn't, right? And he looked at me, and John, he was searching for who I was. I mean, he knew me, and he knew there was something between us, but he didn't know who I was. And so when I said, "Love you," he said, "Love you."
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's like, I love you, and he's like, you getting fresh with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, girl.
You know, I'm glad he remembered that this might not have been appropriate, right? But wasn't that right? Did you tell me something about the ring? About the ring, and you were driving with your dad, and he kept forgetting where he placed it, right?
Right. Yep. Well, actually what had happened is he forgot his rings golfing in the golf cart. And the hardest part about that is it was his mother who passed away when he was 15. It was her diamond that was in his wedding ring that he lost. And so that's the hardest part, is just that piece of family history that meant so much to him that he lost. And all he can do is go, didn't I have some rings on? And all I got to tell him, Dad, Sally's got them in a box at home. Don't worry, they're fine. And then 2 minutes later, he's like, John, I could have sworn I had some rings. And then again, I had to tell him, you know, Dad, don't worry, they're in a box at home. And 6 times on the way to go get a haircut, he asked me this. So then when we pulled into the barber shop, and I did the whole, I figured intensity and repetition. That's how we learn things, right?
Intensity and repetition.
And so I'm gonna make him I'm going to make this stick. So I did the whole, look at me, Dad. The fingers right in the eye. Pops, look at me, look at me. I go, your rings are at home, okay? And he goes, okay. And I go, Dad, your rings are at home. He goes, yeah, okay. And I go, repeat after me. And he goes, what? And I go, my rings are at home. And he goes, my rings are at home. I go, say it again. He goes, my rings are at home. And I go, one more time, Dad. And he goes, my rings are at home. And I go, Dad, where's your rings? He goes, at home. And I go, where are they? And he goes, at home. And then I just yelled, I go, Dad, where are your rings? And he goes, at home. And then he goes, where's home? And I go, I don't know. And he goes, well, then we're toast.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good example of the sense of humor right there that's still there. He doesn't even know where he lives.
Right.
But he still had a punchline.
Right.
My dad's forgotten my name. At Christmas, I went to see them in D.C., and I hadn't brought any gifts with me because too much to get in a suitcase. And so I took my dad to TJ Maxx Christmas Eve morning, and we went shopping, and it was fun because I could say, hey, Dad, do you like this sweater? He goes, yeah, that's nice. I go, okay, good. I'm going to get it for you and surprise you later. And so I got to ask him what he liked and then surprise him with it later. He's like, what? How'd you know I wanted one of these? But on the way back from Christmas shopping, you know, what is it, third person? You know how my dad would always talk when I was a kid. We golfed. The only time I ever really golfed was with my dad. It's not about the game with me. It's about spending time with my dad. That's awesome.
And it's those memories that will carry you.
Yep. And these are the ones that I found video. I've got video.
Awesome.
I've been going through my hard drives lately, and I've got video, 20 years of me golfing with my dad when he was able. And I've got so many clips of
that's awesome.
I've just got so many good clips of us together. He would ask me, he's like, you like golfing with your dad? And I'd say, I love golfing with my dad. You know, that's just always the way he did it. Do you like doing this with your dad? I'm like, love doing this with my dad. So we're driving back from Christmas shopping, and I'm driving, and I go, you like spending time with your son? And he goes, I sure do. JB's a good kid. And I go, what? He goes, he's just a really good kid. And I go, who's that? He goes, my son, JB. And I go, who am I? And he goes, oh, that's you. And so even then we found it, you've got to find a way to laugh about it.
You got to find and laugh about it. Man, it's the laughter that's going to get us through.
Absolutely.
I wish you all the best with that.
Thank you, Roxanne. You too.
Thanks. You may have seen him on Comedy Central or heard him on Sirius XM Radio. Please welcome John DeBoer.
No, that's not forced at all. Thank you, guys. No, like I said, I used to do this before the pandemic. After and that's the comedy through the chaos. That you were so far ahead of the curve because you called it chaos before the. Now we know what chaos really is, which is a worldwide pandemic. Yeah. Mother's Day. You know, my mom. On my birthday this year, my mom, like she does every year, she has to tell me the story of the day I was born, and she brought me home from the hospital. And she said, oh, I still remember that day I brought you. Oh, and you should hear about the day we made you. I'm like, no, I don't need to. I don't need to. I chased your father naked in the rain because I wanted a baby boy. And I'm like, did you ever stop for a second to think maybe you were bringing him into a global pandemic? Just thinking of yourself, Mom. And I'm having to make some adjustments right now. I do see the value of being on social media because that's where the world does exist now. Before there was a half and half, social media and real life, but now and I'm not on social media. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. I am on MySpace for the peace and quiet. I'm the only one there. It's really MySpace. Tom's not even on MySpace anymore. But I think the key to social media is for people to be authentic. And I don't know about you, but life isn't always great. And maybe I shouldn't be tweeting the things that go on in my life. What would I tweet? What would I tweet right now? My dad asked my stepmom to marry him 4 times today. Hashtag Alzheimer's. Aw. And that did really happen. It did really happen. My dad, he came. My stepmom was in the living room, and my dad comes into the kitchen, and he goes, that's a pretty amazing woman in there. And I go, she sure is, Dad. He goes, I think I might ask her to marry me. And I go, she already did marry you, Dad. And he goes, she did? And I go, yeah. He's like, oh, good. My dad has Alzheimer's, and I make fun of it because that's how I deal with it. And that's the key to anything, and especially right now, the key to taking away its power is to make fun of it. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a virus or something you're going through. My dad is the nicest guy I ever met in my life. When I was like my stepmom told me, she goes, now John, your father's going to repeat himself, and I don't want you to get frustrated. I said, Sally, my dad's been repeating himself my entire life. Because 10 times a day growing up, my dad would say, I love you, son. So no matter what he says now, that's what I hear. 13 years old, my dad would come into my bedroom while I'm laying there watching TV, and he'd just lean against the door, and we'd just stare each other down, and finally I'd cave, and I'd be like, oh, can I help you, Dad? And he'd go, nope, just want to tell you I love you. Aww. And I said, and you wonder why I get beat up on the bus, Dad? You're raising a wimp, I hope you know that. Dad, come here, smack me around, man me up a little, would you? Dad, do I have to get the belt? Huh? Dad, where are you going? Dad, 1, 2, that's it, I'm grounded. Yes, I am. And so the Alzheimer's comes on over time. You have to wonder at which point are they just being a little forgetful to when it's actual dementia or Alzheimer's. Well, we realized it, and it was about 1 year ago that I moved my dad and stepmom from Florida to Washington, D.C. to be with my stepsister and her husband. And it was the day that Tiger won the Masters. And my dad loves Tiger Woods. And it was just awesome to be able to get to watch that with him again. And we're watching there. I fly in that day, and we're sitting there watching, and my dad's just so happy that Tiger won. And then they did the real live replay, or the full length replay at the end. And we're watching the end of the Masters again. And my dad looks over at me. He goes, "You know, I think Tiger could win this thing." I'm like, "You want to put some money on it?" The hardest part was last July. I went out to Washington, D.C. to be with them. My stepsister and her husband went on a little vacation, and they left on a Friday. I got into D.C. on a Monday. We were hoping they'd be okay during the weekend, but I got there on Monday night at midnight. I fly in. I go in to check to check on him, and my dad's not in his bed. And I wake up Sally. I'm like, "Sally, where's Dad?" She's like, "Oh, I don't know." I'm like, "Oh, great, there's 2 of you now." And I called the police. They said call the jail and the hospital, so I did. Called the police again. Long story short, they sent 3 squad cars out there at 1:30 in the morning, and by 4 o'clock in the morning, they'd found my dad 100 miles away in Pennsylvania. He got the keys to the car, and evidently he was driving towards Crookston, Minnesota like a salmon going home to die. I don't know. He didn't even have GPS, but he got west right. I'll give him that. And so I had to take an Uber at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I took an Uber 100 miles to go pick up my dad, and I picked him up at the Pennsylvania Highway Patrol substation. And my dad looks at me, and he goes, "Well, hey there, sunshine." I'm like, ah. He's like, how's it going? I go, "You're kidding, right, Dad?" He goes, "No, I would think everything would be going well," as there's a Highway Patrol logo right over his head. I go, "Come on, Papa, let's get you home. Let's go home." He goes, "Where are we going?" I go, "We're going home." And I go, oh, hey, Dad, guess what? He goes, what? I go, Tiger won the Masters. Did he really? And that's when we get home the next day, my dad's he's going through his wallet on the back patio. And that was when I had a question of scruples to decide, because it was $204 for the Uber. And here he's counting his money, he's just going through his wallet. I go, hey, Dad, I go, you got that $200 you owe me? And he goes, what for? I go, and now, let me let you know here, I know it sounds kind of petty in the big scheme of things to be asking for $200, but my dad taught me well. Growing up, if I owed him $5, $4.99 was not going to cut it. You paid him back the $5. When I was a kid, my dad would give me and my sister our allowance and then make us play blackjack so that he could win it back. So I would be disappointing him if I did not ask for my $204. And I said, Dad, you got that $200 you owe me? He goes, what for? I go, a little trip to Pennsylvania. And he looks at me and goes, who went to Pennsylvania? I go, Dad, you went to Pennsylvania. He goes, when? I go, yesterday. Remember, you took the car to Pennsylvania. I had to take an Uber to come and get you, and it cost $204, so you owe me $200. And as he's giving me the money, he's like, I still don't remember going to Pennsylvania. And I'm like, Papa, look at me, all right? I'm not trying to pull one over on you here. I love you. I'm glad you're safe, but you do owe me $200. And he gave me the $200. And then I said, Dad, you got that $200 you owe me? And he goes, what for? I said, Tiger lost the Masters, man. Take this day to love your parents, love your family, love your friends, everyone you know. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Thank you, John DeBoer. Thank you. You're right. Laughter is what's going to get us through all of this. Well, I hope you're having a good time at home. Hello. Send us an emoji, a heart, a comment. Let us know that you're watching and that you're finding that comedy in the chaos. We're laughing a little bit at the heartache. Finding some happiness and joy, pockets of joy in all of this chaos. Well, okay. Up next is Will Spotted Bear. He has an uncanny ability to find humor in some of the most unlikely places. And he's very excited to entertain all of you at home tonight. Will is originally from Pittsburgh, but he now calls the Midwest home. Give it up for Will Spotted Bear.
How's it going, everybody? Oh, good times. I didn't do that as smooth as everyone else. That happens. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'll talk about this. I'm getting married. I was supposed to get married in a couple months, but because of situations, I don't know if you heard, we had to postpone it, which sounds terrible, except now because we get to postpone it, I had a lot of apparently zany ideas that now have a lot more merit for this future wedding. For example, in March, I wanted to wear a veil. And I was just crazy, right? But now, Daddy gonna look good. Look. Laura Mary is very sweet. She has siblings. I have siblings too. The difference is she looks like all of her siblings, which is gross. Because again, the thing with me, I'd explained to her at the wedding that if anybody at that wedding physically looks like me, we are definitely not genetically related. That's how it works. I'm biracial, so my father's Native, my mom is really white, and real basic, and so, no, I'm kidding. She's a lovely person. But we could say that I was the result of a fun excursion between two different people. And now I look like none of my siblings, right? And the thing I am very self-conscious about it because it doesn't matter to any of my siblings, right? It only matters to me. I get more defensive the older I get because I don't look like any of them, but none of us really look the same anyway, right? Like on my father's side, my mother was the only white woman he messed with, so all my siblings there are native and black. And on my mom's side, they're all redheads. So I stick out, is the problem. And I want to get defensive, but none of my siblings actually look the same. Like I have my sister on my father's side, one of them looks like Filipina. I look like possibly Italian or maybe, giant Hispanic. You don't know, it's part of the fun. My other sister looks East Indian. Two of my sisters on my mom's side look like Chucky dolls. I have a brother that looks like a Rottweiler. We don't have time. The thing is, I get defensive. And I went out with them. Like I have two older sisters. I have two younger sisters. The two older siblings don't care because they're older siblings. Older sisters don't care about anything. She is going to protect me. Both of them are. They're not going to be happy about it, and they're going to be very abusive when it happens. Right? I have an older sister, like I said. She is a 108-pound redhead today, and she physically scares me today because she can beat me up today because she cheats, people. She'll use things like a frying pan or a minivan. I warned my fiance just because I get it's a hard thing to deal with, right? It's hard to meet siblings that don't look the same, right? And because I took my sister out to eat once, and the waiter comes up and goes, "So how do you two know each other?" Like, we know each other because we're siblings. We have the same blood going through. I was ready to destroy him. I'm about to go on a tangent with all the tenacity that 90s sitcoms taught us on very special episodes. And my sister explained to me that this guy is a waiter at Olive Garden. He doesn't care. This might not be the day to stand and deliver, right? I didn't meet my father's side of my family until I was about 11 years old. It was an interesting thing because I grew up in inner city Pittsburgh, which explains why I have so much eclecticness. We don't have twins. We have twins with different dads over there. First time I met my older sister on my father's side, I didn't know anything about him. They didn't have Facebook. You just found out you had a sibling, then you got to meet him, right? I opened the door. I'm 11 years old. She is 17. And opened the door. Now, knowing what I know now, she's obviously biracial, but since I didn't have that palette, she just looked black. And she goes, "I'm your sister." And I go, "I'm pretty sure that's not how this works." I went to school, a public school in the 90s. They were very adamant that we cannot be related. Like, in hindsight, way too adamant. Like, I had a book. They said we're all the same, but not really. Stay away from each other, separate but equal. It was a really messed up book. It was an old one. And then she had to explain to me fun with genetics and explain how that works, right? And that's how that happens. Now, 12 years later, I end up going back to Pittsburgh. I get to see them again. I'm hanging out with my family. I can't leave the house in their neighborhood, but I'm there. And I meet my niece, her daughter. She's about 12 years old. Now, she is very black and a little native. And I go, "Well, I'm your uncle." And her 10-year-old looks at me and goes, "No, you're not. I have this book." I'm like, "Oh my God, they should have really changed that by now." It is a difficult thing trying to get us set up. I do love my family. I love my mom. My mom is a very smart, capable woman. I'll talk about her real quick. She is the nicest woman that grew up in a ghetto. You know what I mean? Like, she's like Betty Crocker with a Glock. You got to respect that. Because that's a power. Like, thing is, I didn't know I grew up in a rougher neighborhood until I left. I went into the military because Iraq had better options than my neighborhood. And I moved out to the Midwest, and I realized I might have grew up a little rough. I didn't know that because I had a mom. And she made the most insane stuff seem normal, you know? An example, a couple of years ago, I was watching a movie with some of my friends called The Warriors. It's an old 70s movie. It's really good. Now in it, there's a scene in it where a guy has a baseball bat with nails sticking out of it. And all of my friends go, "Oh my God, who would have one of those?" I had one of those when I was a kid. They're like, "Oh my God, why?" I'm like, well, because nobody's scared of a regular baseball bat, right? You can just catch them and it's on, right? Like, have you never fought a crackhead? They're like weeble wobbles. They don't go down, right? Some of you get it, none of my friends did. Not a one, right? All of a sudden, movie night became intervention night. It got awkward. So I decided to do, I called the nicest woman I know. I called my mom. I said, "Hey, Mom, did you know it was unusual for me to have a baseball bat with nails sticking out of it?" She goes, "But sweetie, nobody's scared of a regular baseball bat." That's my mom. Thank you so much for having me. Happy Mother's Day. How you doing?
Feeling pretty black. What about you?
Yeah, pretty native. Like, 50-50. Comes and goes, depending on the football season.
What's that like?
Not as consistent as you would like. A lot of people think I like heavy metal music now.
That's gotta be weird.
It is. I'm a real Barry Manilow fan. I'm a fan-alo.
Got it. Me too. I was feeling a lot less black on Tuesday.
Was it because of Barry Manilow?
Maybe. I thought it was the weather. What about you?
Huh.
How you feeling?
Oh, what, I guess.
Figures.
Big laughs times 3. I told you Miss Shannon had some funny friends, and as you saw in the video, they've been telling jokes for a really long time, and they've known each other for a really long time. And now it's time for the woman who brought us all together. She is a comedian, a speaker, a radio and television host, and someone who we are all happy to call our friend. Give it up for none other than Miss Shannon!
Hey! Yes, thank you, Roxanne. Thank you to all of my friends that joined us today, and thanks to everybody that is watching us today. Happy Mother's Day. Very excited to be here. I feel like I've always said, whenever I do a show, I always say I'm excited to be here, and people are like, wow, that's a super weird thing to do. But especially with everything that we have going on right now, this is a very good place to be excited to be. Like, before this, I'm so glad that this happened before we got on lockdown, because before we went on lockdown, I had some long-term house guests. Yeah, they were supposed to stay with me for 2 weeks, but they ended up at my house for 2.5 months. Oh. I know, it's delicious, right? Yeah. But you have to help people. There's my friend and his crazy girlfriend, and they have 2 tiny babies. They have a 7-month-old and a 24-month-old, and he had just started a new job, and they're on welfare, and they're white. Yes! I'm like, hooray, good for me. Yeah, breaking stereotypes in the suburbs, that's what I'm doing. Divorced black mom with good credit in a house when they moved in, yes. I'm a pilgrim. A pilgrim with pigment, soak it in, yes. But it was all weird because I had this tiny white family living in my basement for 2 months. This weird reverse Anne Frank situation going on. My kid was all pissed off because he couldn't get to our PlayStation. And I mean it when I say they're tiny. I'm only 5'4". It doesn't take much to be taller than me. So I called them the Littles. If there's any old school people out there, the Borrowers will work as well. That's a literary reference. Thank you. Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah. See, everybody here is like, that joke works a lot better now I live in the Midwest. It's like, it works real in the Midwest because they're like, oh, okay, because they're not really racist up here. Like, I grew up in Arizona. We have real racists in Arizona. This is different. This is fine. Yeah. Yeah. They got all quiet again. Like, anybody in Arizona who's watching goes, yeah, we do have real racists here. They know, yeah. Everybody in the Midwest that goes, oh, yeah, that's where we send all our old people to die, yeah. Like, bye-bye, Nana. Enjoy your rock lawn. See you at the holidays. And like, we won't see you at the holidays, no. That's why I like it. People always think it's so weird that I grew up in Arizona and I stay here in the Midwest because they're like, oh, the weather's so much better. I'm like, either way, half of the year the weather is trying to murder you. It's the same difference regardless of where you go. You know, but Arizona is totally different. Like, it's like just culturally a completely different thing. And here in the Midwest, they're not really racist. They're more like just accidentally insensitive. That's it. Practice makes perfect, everyone. We'll get there together. It'll be fine. Yeah. My favorite thing is when I'm at the grocery store and somebody comes up and goes, ooh, I really like your hair. Can I pet you? In fact, if you have some sunflower seeds, I'll eat them right out of your hand. We're very exotic. That's how it is. Very exotic, my people. That's why I stay here and I raise my good, appropriate, American beige kid. That's what I have. It's perfect here. Because I happen to be black and my ex-husband happens to be white. That's what you get sometimes, a little beige kid, like Will said. So like if you took us to like Home Depot and like blend us in a paint shaker, that's what you get. It's perfect. I mean, I don't take him back to Arizona because they'll ask him for papers, but here, he's perfect. It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. You know, I'm like Tiffany, I'm another mom that's in this show, another mom just like Roxanne, and it's fine. My son is 12 now. We made it all the way to 12. So every Mother's Day, it's Mother's Day. I pat myself on the back. Well done. You got him here. Didn't kill him yet. Good job. Got to think. Because anybody that has boys go, that's pretty much what they do. They spend every waking moment trying to murder themselves. That's what they do. And then if it actually happens, it's my fault. I'm like, he's the one that decided to jump out of that tree. Why weren't you watching him? Because he told me to stop watching him? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. He's adorable. I also like to share the fact that my son has autism. And I do that on behalf of other parents that have special needs kids. Because there's some things we want you to know. He is amazing. He is my heart. I am his voice. I love him. He is not magic. And if you thought that, it's not your fault. We're Americans. We learn things from movies. That's what we do. You saw a couple movies about autistic people. You think you know everything. Yes, he has autism. He's awesome. He's awesome. He is not an excellent driver. He can't win you any money in Vegas, you know. Then a couple TV shows came out and they're like, oh, he has autism. What's his special thing? I'm like, he's 12. Emotionally manipulating me for more popsicles. That's what he does. What does your 12-year-old do? You know, and I'm not saying that we don't have additional challenges. We have adventures all the time. We have things we have to deal with. What I am saying is that at least I know exactly what's going on with my child. Because some people just have crappy kids. We all know at least one. And you look at the parent like, clearly you did this. They just got here. No. At any given time, there is a walk or a march commemorating my son. I have a T-shirt that says, I love my son. He has autism. They don't have a shirt that says, I love my son, but he's crappy. They don't. If they do, they made it themselves with puffy paint. They should get out of the craft store and parent their child, is it? It is hard though, no. We spend a lot of time, you know, and I'm very fortunate that I have some amazing friends and I was trying to figure out this new version of what the quote unquote normal is right now. How do we maintain our relationships and our friendships and what do we do right now? And we do all of the things that you guys are probably doing out there. Like we watch people online, we're doing all of our Facebook messages, we're doing all of our Zoom meetings, we're doing our social hours online, and we know it's not the same. It's not the same. We get that. We get that. But there's so many times that things have come up in the past where it was not okay. And so we understand that sometimes it's okay to not be okay. I am blessed to have, thank you very much. I am blessed that today, between Rox and between John and between Will and between Tiffany, I have a room full of people that are some of my best friends in the world, and I want you to know that you have those people too. I mean, and everything, when you talk about your friends that were there when the bodies were buried, I brought them all here. So if this building goes down right now, nobody will ever learn anything about me again. They say keep your enemies close, keep your friends close too if you don't want anybody to know where anything bad lives. So that's all perfect. Absolutely perfect. No, but it is hard. And we were talking about how there's some things that are different even when we're not going through all of the chaos that we're going through right now. We've talked about family. We were talking about relationships. We're talking about the fact that there are normal challenges that you have that just seem more complicated right now. Like all of these things that I'm going through with my son, I had to deal with before, but now I got to homeschool him. The only time that I ever didn't feel guilty when he wasn't around was when I sent him to school. Now he's with me all the time, just yelling things in my ear because I'm the only one that gets to tell him to do stuff. Every man out there remembers how easy it is to tune out the women in your life. Think of what it's like when you're stuck in the house with them every day. He doesn't listen to a word I say. It's funny though. When I look back on the fact that I got all the way to 12, there's just always some things that I look at in life that I'm like, how do we get there this far? Like I remember he was younger, like we've always had to deal with like these little different challenges. I remember when he was younger, I had this time when I was trying to get him to brush his teeth and I was trying to get him to take a shower. And we're very busy people, right? We're busy people. So sometimes you just want to consolidate things in your life, right? You want to just put them all together. So I figured I'd let him brush his teeth while he's in the shower. I'm not the only one that's done that. People have done that before, right? So I got him in the shower. I hand him his toothbrush. By the time I turn over here to get the toothpaste, I turn back around. He's not brushing his teeth. He's brushing his tush. So I get to say, no, honey, don't brush your butt. But he looks at me like I'm the stupid one. Because clearly this apparatus was specifically designed with this task in mind. It's like that washcloth you gave me was bullshit. In fact, I don't think you're any good at this. We're taking you back to the store. You're defective. So I'm like, no, honey, okay. So you'll settle for teaching moments, right? That's what you do. You'll settle for teaching moments. I'm like, no, honey, don't do that here. Save that for Daddy's house. And use his toothbrush. That's called sharing. You like it when they listen, don't you? You like it when they listen. But we do hope that everyone had a great time today. We appreciate you being part of this. We appreciate you being part of these laughs and letting us come into your homes and be part of your families today. Thank you, Roxanne. Thank you to everybody watching. I'm Miss Shannon, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Miss Shannon, and a big thank you to all of our performers, Tiffany Norton, John DeBoer, and Will Spotted Bear. We hope that we made you laugh this Mother's Day, helped you find some comedy in the chaos, find some bright spots in the troubled times that we're in right now. And I want you to remember that we're all in this together, and we are, as you heard, more alike than we are different, and you can bet we will get through this together. I'm Roxanne Battle. Thanks so much for tuning in. Stay safe, be healthy, and remember, this too shall pass.
We appreciate you being part of the debut of Comedy Through the Chaos. Thanks to our host, Roxanne Battle. Thanks to our amazingly talented crew, Taylor Cisco, Ellie Drews, and Brandon Simon. A big thank you to Sean and Cheryl from the New Hope Cinema Grill for letting us practice our social distancing here. And thanks to our partners, the Minnesota State Arts Board and Livia Weight Control Centers. Finally, a giant thank you to all of you for loaning us your eyes and ears during this performance. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Just look for Comedy Through the Chaos. We would love to hear from you before our next show. Before we go, here's a fun look at some behind the scenes footage from Comedy Through the Chaos. We'll see you next time.